When it comes to your network, visibility is imperative because you can't secure what you can't see. Riverbed's network performance management solution gives you 100% network visibility 100% of the time. Now you can resolve performance issues and security threats up to 90% faster and reduce response time, damage, and cost spent on remediation and containment efforts. Connect with Riverbed today and learn how their NPM solution can protect your network by visiting securityweekly.com/Riverbed. Picture your team being able to map out the external attack surface as it grows and see the same attack vectors as a hacker does. Most tools out there do asset discovery, but stop there. Enter Detectify. It takes an inventory of exposed web assets and automates vulnerability testing for security misconfigurations, expiring subdomains, and risks in third-party software. Here's the cool part. They crowdsource payloads from leading ethical hackers. It finds bugs you actually want to fix and finds them in time. Start a free 2-week trial by visiting securityweekly.com/Detectify. Go hack yourself.
Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Join us January 20th to learn how to build your own security lab at home or at work. Don't forget to check out our library of on-demand webcasts and technical trainings at securityweekly.com/on-demand. Really looking forward to that lab webcast there. We're going to go over different kinds of labs you can build. If you want to study for the OSCP, you might want to build an offensive testing lab, maybe have some vulnerable, intentionally vulnerable VMs running there. If you are building a lab at work because you want to be able to test new products and try new things out, that's going to be a different kind of lab. If you want to test mobile apps and web applications and things like that, that's again a very different kind of lab that you're going to need different stuff in. So we're going to cover a lot of different types of labs in that webcast. Should be a lot of fun. All right, so wrapping up a year of ESW. It's been a big year for me because I don't even remember when it was, Tyler. Somewhere halfway through the year, maybe a little more than halfway through the year, Paul stepped down and I became the main host of ESW.
Yeah, you became the man. You became the myth, the legend.
And you're about to hit a year. I had forgotten that your first Enterprise Security Weekly was episode 212, was the beginning of this year.
Do you remember? Was it in January itself? Was it like early in January or?
Yeah, no, it was like January 6th. It was the very first week of January.
Holy smokes. I've been doing this for a year now and we haven't gotten any better, Adrian.
43 episodes, 129 segments. You weren't here for all of them, but you were here for most of them.
Yeah, I had to skip every once in a while. I had to maintain my sanity and go do something else. But no, I'm just kidding. I have had an absolutely amazing year doing this. I've loved every second of it, and I hope you guys keep me around for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, no, I both love the knowledge that you and Katie bring, and I love the irony that you're both in marketing for competing companies.
That irony is not lost on me, and I have to do my best not to chuck her company under the bus at every turn. But no, Katie has been an awesome addition to the team as well. I've loved having her. She's just such you know what the key is, and I say this to a lot of people. Most people think I'm blowing smoke, but the key is just working with people you love working with, and it doesn't feel like work anymore, right? And so the last 12 months of doing ESW with you guys wasn't work. It was fun, right? I come on here, I talk about cool stuff and, give my opinions, many times wrong, sometimes right. And you guys actually give me a platform to do it. So yeah, I think Katie's an excellent addition to the team. We never like to see Paul step down from the baby he helped create from scratch, but you know what? We're killing it without him. So we're going to go forth and carry the torch into next year.
Oh, he's making more babies. He's got other babies to take care of now.
Easy. That's like something I just don't want to watch or consider. So.
Actually, we do have some new Security Weekly podcasts coming in the next year, and one of them is a big passion project for Paul. Obviously, I'll let him announce that. I'm not gonna say anything about it here.
So I won't leak that either. but I'm privy to what it is. I think it's the one I'm thinking of, and it's going to be freaking cool. It is really going to be, in my opinion, one of the best podcasts on the market across the board in the security landscape. I'm really excited to hear about it.
Yeah, same here. And we're also going to have some more industry focused podcasts, that we'll be announcing, so more in the general theme of the Security Weekly podcast that try and cover different parts of the industry, for different people, different roles. So we've got some interesting ideas there, and I will be running some of those also. So I'll be a host on some of those new podcasts as well. So
how many? Do you have any idea how many you're going to end up hosting? What your host level will be next year?
Potentially as many as 3, including this one.
Wow!
But those other ones will
be 3 times the Adrian. 3 times the Adrian.
This is a 3-segment podcast, though. We typically try and do 2 interviews and then a news segment. And both these new ones are just going to be single segment. They're going to be much shorter, kind of like the Security Weekly news ones.
Yep.
So won't be nearly as heavy a lift as running Enterprise Security Weekly.
Indeed.
So almost a year ago, in January, the big thing we were talking about, a few things, Amazon was kicking Parler off its cloud.
Yes, so, I remember that.
Enforced downtime, not like this current downtime we're experiencing this month.
So that's funny, right? So year over year, what has Amazon done? They used to kick people off their cloud. Now they just take down their entire cloud and kick everybody off.
Yeah. They used to kick people off on purpose. Now it's accidental. I'm sorry, Amazon.
It's an easy target, Adrian. I mean, we can't walk away when they give us the layups, buddy. We got to dunk them.
All my packages made it. I can't complain too much. It's just not all my packets made it.
Oh, hey-oh.
Also, a big story was the Solarwinds hack. That went on for a while. There were stories within stories within stories there. And back in January of this year, January 2021, we were still talking a lot about the implications of that Solarwinds hack, which is interesting given what we've seen this year since.
Well,
right?
I was just going to say, which is worse, SolarWinds or Log4Shell?
Log4Shell.
You think so?
100%. I think it's going to take a lot longer to unfold than SolarWinds took, because SolarWinds was a single organization, and they had a list of who their customers were. So there was a pretty quick way of telling who was affected by that. Log4j, not as easy. Not everybody knows, or not everybody knew that they were using it. In fact, it was very telling how long it took some vendors to get their press releases out, their customer notifications of whether or not they were using Log4j, and customers are just sitting there waiting to either find out that they have to update stuff, or in some cases they already knew that Log4j was in those systems and were dependent on those vendors to ship updates. So
yeah, it's going to be super interesting. That I refuse to talk about Log4j in January, because then what I don't want to have is next December the discussion about how things got worse from Log4j, right, from January to December. So I'm not going to talk about it in January. I just refuse to.
I think supply chain challenges were a common theme throughout the year. Whether it's a vendor getting hacked, like SolarWinds and Ubiquity got hit also, or vendors going down, like Amazon, and I think we had outages with all the major cloud vendors this year, significant outages. Facebook even went down for a while.
That wasn't a negative, Adrian.
Yeah, that was a positive.
that was a positive result, and we're hoping it happens again and again in 2022.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, the real sad thing about that comment, though, is that my brother works there, so he's probably cursing my name right now.
Nice. But we talked a lot about S-bombs this year. We talked a lot about supply chain issues. The cybersecurity executive order came out, mentioned S-bombs in there, mentioned, I think Section 4 was specifically on supply chain security. And I think going into 2022, that's still a huge concern. Not just things like Log4j, but what was it? The UA parser JS package,
Yep.
the npm package that
Yep.
had malicious installer thrown into the npm package.
And here's, I'm going to show my ignorance on SolarWinds because I don't recall it. I just have a very poor memory. There you go. I filtered myself. It wasn't SolarWinds also somewhat of a supply chain issue how they got popped though, personally?
Oh, honestly, I'm not sure I ever dug into the details of how they got popped. So I can't answer that.
I vaguely remember it being some kind of supply chain issue that then got into their development processes, and that's how it got blasted out. But anyways, I feel like the theme of 2021 truly was supply chain in some way, shape, or form. Like if we really did bubble it up to the top, couple of important lessons that cybersecurity could have learned in 2021 going into next year is that cybersecurity across your supply chain is one of the biggest problems that we're trying to solve, right? Everybody's like cloud security is cloud security. And yes, that's important and it's forward looking. And as we move into the cloud more and more, that's going to be important. But software supply chain, S-bombs, just as important, if not bigger.
Yeah. And moving on from that, I was just looking through my notes to see if I had any analysis of how SolarWinds got popped. But connected to that, asset management. What you work on in your day job.
And Katie, we won't ignore her just because she's not here.
But we actually had a really good discussion on that. We did a segment called "It's 2021. Do you know where your assets are?" Back in early January. That was episode 213.
We did an entire episode on that?
A segment, yeah. A full segment on just asset management. And I think it was you, me, Paul, and John Strand on that one, if I recall correctly.
I remember that. Yeah, no, that's a good way. A good way to kick off the year.
Episode 213, if you want to check that out. I'm sure it's 100% relevant today. We could just re-air it in January in a couple of weeks. Because I'm not sure we've progressed very much. So, I mean, that's an interesting topic. Why haven't we? And actually, I just put out an article today, published an article or an essay that I wrote earlier today, basically saying that Log4j was something we totally could have prepared for after the Struts Equifax breach back in 2017. That was the perfect case study, the perfect use case. To fix this kind of software asset inventory S-bomb type of issue, but people haven't prioritized it. So I guess that's a question I have going into 2022. With Log4j, is that going to be enough for people to change their priorities? What do you think?
Oh man, so it's interesting, right? There's all sorts of different assets when we're talking about cyber assets, and an S-bomb is a form of asset inventory. It's code assets that you're using within your applications, right? And knowing what you have is kind of the fundamental underpinning of any way to do cybersecurity or any cybersecurity program
awareness
component. Yeah, just knowing what you have. If you don't know what you have, you can't secure it. And it seems cliche, and every marketer says that. But at the end of the day, you still do need to know where your assets are, and define those assets in the sense of like literally everything that could be potential for risk, right? So do I think we get better in 2022? I do. Gartner coined a term for that market, the cyber asset management and governance market, called CASM, CAASM. They did that in July, so the market is officially coined in that regard. And I do think as we progress into 2022, you're going to see more buzz come up around the CASM market, understanding where and what your cyber assets are, because it's fundamental to success, right? So that ties directly into Log4j in the sense of it's a cyber asset. Your software code is cyber assets. And so I think we'll see improvement, but I would bet dollars to donuts by the end of 2022. We don't have it complete. We don't have it right. It's a 4, 5, 6, 10-year run to get that kind of fundamental fix in place. So we're hoping to be successful next year and at least laying the groundwork and starting to build recognition for cyber asset governance that should help.
So I don't often think that it's a good thing that Gartner has introduced a new term, but I do think it's important to. I actually do a lot of advisory calls over at IANS on asset management. And I think one of the key things people need to understand is it's totally normal to have a dozen asset management systems. The help desk, service desk, needs something totally different from what the network team needs. Like, we have tons of asset management tools. We might not think of them or label them as asset management throughout the organization. And I think that's what's hurt efforts here in the past is people think they need to have one asset management tool for the whole organization, and it's going to be ServiceNow. And it never gets fully done. It's a mess. It's not maintained. It's not clear who's supposed to be maintaining different things. Different people have different use cases for it. And the security team has a very specific set of use cases for cyber asset management. So I think it makes sense for that to live as a separate product, as a different category, and exist even alongside other asset management tools.
100% agree with that. Yeah, the cybersecurity focused asset management platforms like JupiterOne and Exonius that both Katie and I work at and are helping to build, it does not displace ServiceNow today, and it's never intended to displace ServiceNow. Maybe 5, 10, 20 years from now when we're the size of Google or something, but that's not anything that we would think about right now. We live alongside ServiceNow because we have cybersecurity focused and specific views and vantage point into your assets and what you do with those assets and how you create actionable analysis and intelligence from them. That's the difference between a traditional CMDB or a ServiceNow IT asset management system and a cybersecurity focused one, cloud and cybersecurity focused one like JupiterOne. So, the market's young, the need is young, but it's there and growing, and we're excited looking into 2022 for this space.
You owe me a briefing.
I do, and I will put you on as early as first week in January. We'll get you in.
Yeah, you and Katie both. I'm going to stay on you two about it.
No, you don't have to stay on me, buddy. We'll get you there in January. No problem.
So another big theme is the SOC and whether or not the SOC is really a thing. I've seen a pretty big schism in the industry. We've talked about it a lot. We've had a lot of guest segments on this topic. And I know some CISOs out there that are trying different approaches. They're trying a more distributed approach to a SOC. The idea being, maybe a lot of the security responsibility, including security operations, should reside with the asset owners, because they're not going to have as many questions. They know their environments better. They know what's normal. They know what's going to look like an anomaly. It's just going to be a lot more efficient to do some of that work within different IT departments rather than have security try and do it for the whole organization.
Are we talking about truly having a merger between dev, sec, and ops? Is that where you're going with that?
Yeah, so I think you still have a central SOC, and I think it mirrors kind of where we see the security organization going in general. So SOC is just a piece of that larger progress we're seeing with security in general, where organizations are realizing, look, we can't do security for the whole organization. There's never going to be a large enough security team to do that. We need other people to be thinking about security on a regular basis as they go through their workflows, as they make different IT decisions. And I think it's just an extension of that. But the security team still remains there as like an advisory group within the company, and they still do a lot of, kind of high macro level, watching for trends, looking for anomalies, threat hunting, things like that. Maybe stay within the security team, but handling day-to-day stuff that SOCs do today, maybe don't stay with the SOC. in the future.
Huh. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that distributes out. Yeah, I really can't add too much color on there. I've never been a SOC analyst in my life, so I'm always afraid to make commentary about the day-to-day life of a SOC analyst. But I mean, you're certainly making sense to me.
And I think it's another one of those things like we were talking about with the phishing training stuff earlier. Is there's so many different kinds of organizations. A cloud first startup organization is going to approach the SOC and the idea of security operations very differently than a traditional financial institution, for example.
Yeah.
So I think, also that's an important note that there's not one, fits everything model here.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to risk tolerance levels, right? Depending on how tolerant you are of risk determines the level of depth of that capability you really need to have.
Well, and also like the Log4j thing is such a solved problem for like 10% of the industry for those kind of cloud first startup companies that, got to start without any tech debt, and have designed everything from the ground up to be able to easily find things and quickly make changes to software. Not a big deal for them to figure out if Log4j is in their environment, and then the other 90% of the industry.
Yeah, also not a big deal for them because they were born after Java was hot and nobody in their right mind uses Java anymore.
Yeah, but they still have cloud-first organizations. Even Uber runs SAP, right? They've got two different sides of the organization. There's the cloud-first people behind the app and connecting drivers to riders and stuff like that. But then there's also the back office stuff, and it looks like any other old school bank or something like that.
Yeah, the legacy COD stuff's still there.
Yeah. So it's an interesting problem because it is about risk and prioritization. I'm not sure we're entirely honest with ourselves that, hey, you know what? Next year, I'm not going to be any better at finding Log4j because if I do the risk math, it just doesn't make sense to spend that much time, the amount of time it would take to get good at that.
Yeah, and it's a law of decreasing return on that too, right? So you're going to hit all your high-risk apps and systems first, then you're going to check those thoroughly. And at what point do you really give a crap about that tiny little thing sitting back in the corner, right? At some point, the return on digging for Log4j will decrease enough that we're just done. Okay, if we stumble across something somewhere, hopefully it's not PII connected and there's very little value to it, right? But just like anything, it's going to be hard to root out. It's like a systemic problem, Log4j, right? It's literally in everything we play with. And when you think of it that way, it's like, how do you get rid of such a systemic worldwide issue? This thing's going to linger for decades. It's going to be around 10 plus years, 15 plus years from now.
Yeah, and the world will continue to turn. We'll move on. We might see other ones here. I think the big issue is how you handle that initial rush of we don't know how vulnerable we are. And one of the interesting things with Log4j, that I don't think we've seen. I think the last time we saw it was with Meltdown Inspector, where people really didn't know what to do, and there was a mix of different advice out there. We heard if you had, the latest version of Java or certain versions of Java, you weren't affected. We saw people trying to use their WAFs to stop it, not really fully understanding how it got exploited and all the different ways that it could. People were treating it as a web vulnerability when it was really, a web app was just one of many ways to get data into a log somewhere.
Yep.
So that kind of initial response to it, now that there's so many more eyes on cybersecurity, and there were so many competing, like a lot of them were vendors trying to put out recommendations, and everybody was putting out different tools, and some of those tools would go through recursive jars and WAR files looking for these class files within, nested within files, and other ones didn't. So you run into that issue that we saw with Equifax, where the real failure of Equifax is they didn't know how to find a jar file in a large corporate environment. That was not a skill that their security team had.
Yep, agreed. Sorry about my dog. I don't know if you can hear my dog yapping in the background, but sorry if you can.
Yeah. You've trained your dog to bark every time Equifax is uttered.
Equifax, bark, bark.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, get very upset at Equifax.
Another trend we saw was removing the password. I think it was mostly just a handful of companies. We're starting to see, the tip of the trend there with Microsoft and Duo, companies like that, giving you options to not just to use other forms of authentication, but to get rid of the password entirely, where there's literally no password hash there. There's nothing, no form of authentication that uses a text string.
This is one thing that I wish, like we talked about at the beginning of the year about how this is coming. It's still not freaking here. How do we get it here? How do we get to the point that I can just use my biometric every time I want to log into something? This has to happen. We have to get rid of that weakest link of passwords. It's everywhere. And we talked about it like it was the next big coming, and here we are 12 months later talking about it like it's the next big coming. So I would love to see this thing happen in 2022.
Yeah, I think the industry did great at offering alternatives to the password, but I don't think the message necessarily got through that, hey, we don't want just alternatives, we want to get rid of it altogether. Like just delete it out of there, because cred stuffing is still one of the most common ways that attackers get into systems today, and I'm sure pen testers too. So yeah, we're going to have to get rid of them entirely, I think. Already in the DevOps space, we see teams that just automate rotating passwords every hour. Like once an hour, the password changes. Because why not? Because everything's fully automated. But on the consumer side,
that's not a pain in the ass at all. That's not going to result in people looking for ways around it. I promise. That'll be nice and easy.
But yeah, it would be nice to see. I think it's nice that Microsoft did that on the consumer side for their consumer accounts, and I think it's interesting that that's where we saw it happen first, not on the enterprise side. At least for something that's a very, very large scale like that. That's the account you use to log into your Xbox services, into your email. Everything Microsoft on the consumer side. So that was a pretty big one for me. And then I guess the last thing is just talking about the market. And I think we'll wrap on that, because this year has just been completely nuts. I've got some stats here that I shared in the Slack earlier with you, but I think where's my number on 2020? Everybody was like, whoa, 2020 was the biggest year ever. There was just shy of, I think, $8 billion in investments in 2020. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure we've seen more than 8 weeks in 2021 alone where there was $1 billion in investment in those individual weeks.
Yeah, I don't know if you have the graph or the numbers handy, but I saw some stats coming out of Crunchbase that were just like, and don't quote me on these numbers, but it was something like 8 to 24. Like last year was 8, this year was 24 or 20, something like that, whereas 3x the amount. I mean, just astronomical investment. And we talk about this every week, not because yes, because it's a topic I love, but we talk about it every week because these cyber companies just keep getting money thrown at them. You literally, money is the cheapest thing right now. I'm talking to some early stage investors. They're taking their seed round. They're not even pricing a valuation because they're like, look, we don't have to. People are literally giving us this money saying, don't worry about valuing your company. We'll figure it out later. Like at the next round, we'll figure out what you're worth. It's like, holy smokes, guys, this is out of control. Literally $5-6 million for no percentage of the company. Just giving it to them.
Yeah. I saw that conversation, and it was. I'm trying to remember. I signed up for a trial of Crunchbase, and still, even with the trial, could not get a total for all the funding this year. I did get a number on the number of rounds, and I think it was somewhere around 670 funding rounds for cybersecurity companies this year. But yeah, 3x at least over last year, I think sounds about right. In fact, back when I was at 451, I remember when I left there in 2017, I think there were, in cybersecurity specifically, I think there was 140 something investments was the total that we counted. And we're talking 670 now.
Amazing. And
just in general, some information from CB Insights on unicorns. In March, for one of our shows, I scribbled down some stats. There were 630 unicorns, not just cybersecurity, but worldwide, all startups. 630 unicorns, totaled up to $2 trillion in valuation. And 9 months later, today, when I looked up those same stats off of CB Insights, there are now 943 unicorns. So we gained over 300 more in 9 months and another $1 trillion in valuation.
Yeah, what's another trillion? No problem. Every single one of those companies is going to exit with a profit. Don't worry. It'll all work out just fine.
That's the analysis that's really going to be interesting is 2 or 3 or 5 years from now, how much of that extra $1 trillion, what was that actually worth? Because
it's interesting. I've said this story before, back when I remember, and I've talked about my unicorn death pool thing that I wrote a number of years ago before on this show. That was, I want to say, probably I was an analyst at Forrester, maybe. So that had to be before 2015-ish, 2016, 2014, somewhere in that window. And, I was predicting that this just couldn't last, that unicorns couldn't grow at this pace and exits couldn't be this profitable. And here we are a handful of years later talking about decacorns and like 10 horned unicorns. And, when we're talking about that, here I am again going, this just can't be profitable. This can't possibly work. But I after getting burned on that last prediction, I just don't know if I can make that same prediction. Maybe this works and I'm just too short-sighted to see it.
And then consider, one of the things we touched on earlier this year on this show was that Microsoft's security business was rumored to be worth $10 billion alone in annual revenue, which, according to some of the other numbers I dug up, is a sixth of the entire security industry.
Well, it doesn't really matter revenue. What matters is valuation. Ask any startup founder.
Yeah, and honestly, they don't do as many acquisitions as you would think somebody doing that much revenue in security would do. But so we now have 42 cybersecurity unicorns. Looks like we added around 20 more this year.
Oh, geez.
And 42. So we were adding them, a couple a month. Sometimes more.
They're not unicorns anymore. They're just horses with horns on their head.
Yeah. So what else here? We saw some big deals and stuff like that, but I think I don't know. Are we going to see? Is it going to continue to grow at this rate next year? I don't see any reason for it not to.
I hope so, and I'm going to give our super producer Goose the chance to throw the decacorn back up on the screen here. Hopefully, we'll see more of these little beauties popping out in 2022 because they're just pretty to look at, and they're fun to talk about.
Yeah, and maybe some dragons. Maybe we'll have an opportunity to get a dragon graphic up there.
Yes, Goose, go back to the drawing board and give us a cyber dragon. That's the next thing. Excellent.
All right. I think that's a great place to wrap it. Thanks, Tyler, so much for joining me today on Enterprise Security Weekly. And also big thanks to Katie. Big thanks to Johnny and Gustavo for running everything behind the scenes there, for providing these great graphics.
Yes. Yes, thank you to those two right there. They are fantastic super producers. We love you guys. You don't get enough screen time. You guys rock it. Thank you.
Thanks to Renee for helping us find and line up some of these great interviews that we have, for doing all the logistics behind the scenes on that. Thanks to Sam for helping me out of holes that I dig myself in with prepping for the show and everything else that Sam does. But no thanks to Paul, because he dumped the show on me and made me do
screw
it.
that guy. Screw that guy. And hey, let me wrap up. Adrian, thank you to you, man. You've been an awesome co-host. Thank you so much. You rocked it this year. Thank you for bringing me on. I've really enjoyed the last year with you guys.
Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate you.